But we see this become toxic, especially like, and you see this in like rom-coms all the time where someone breaks up with this girl and they're like, you were too good for him anyway. Like, actually, you might not have been. You probably had some flaws.
All right, welcome to the Bacon Bibles and Barbells podcast. I'm Coach Justin, joined by Coach Amanda and Coach Bill. Today we're talking about more reasons why you're not making progress, because the last one was so fun. And I think I said before, Amanda can't with too many good reasons why you're not making progress. And so instead of cutting down the like 25 she came up with into like all one episode, we're like, no, we should do a second one. And the last one we went long anyway. So we'll try to keep this one more to the point. But before we get started, let's talk about what we're doing in the gym. Bill had a fun, not gym experience, but strength experience. Maybe you can talk about that.
Yeah, it was after my lift. So essentially what happened was I was working on someone's brakes and the parking pin on their front parking pin was broken. And so when they put the e-brake on and we put it on the jack stands, the axle rolled and it came off the jack stands while Jade and I were working on the tire, and it almost fell on Jade's head. And so I had to catch it by the wheel well and hold it for probably, 10, 20 seconds for her to slide out. And I put it down and nothing, we continued working on it 4 or 5 hours. And because this was a trouble case, and I got home and started running a fever and got sick, and my joints are super inflamed, tweaked my hamstring. No injuries to the muscles in my arms, but the joints, the shoulders and the elbows feel horrific right now, even several days later. So I'll be taking this week off of training to just heal, eat and sleep, do the real healers. And then I'll get back after it next week.
Yeah.
Thankfully, you just ended up being sick and sore and not having a car crush your wife's head. That would be
correct.
That would be terrible.
Absolutely. And so, that's just a thing that, it's one of those things where you look at God's grace and you go, well, praise God for not only the strength to do that, but also pretty minimal fallout, right? Like Jade's okay.
Yeah.
I'm all right. I'm just a little injured, and we're good. And
so, like you could have detached a bicep or something. Like that's the catches like that. That's like biceps going, and you wouldn't have held the car if that happened.
Yeah. Well, and my wife does not have any myelin on her frontal cortex here in the prefrontal cortex in her nerves. And so any impact there is really, really bad. Right. Yeah. And so we're very, very fortunate there. So thankful, not feeling amazing, but that's just the way it goes. And so being sensible, every part of me wants to go to the gym, but I'm just not going to. And that's it. We can actually talk about that. And one of the reasons that you're not making progress.
We could, not recovering. Yeah. I mean, just a plug too. Those of you guys that are like thinking about strength training, come on. You can literally save your wife's life sometimes. There are practical applications to this that you cannot predict sometimes. And like being in a car accident, who's more likely to survive? The guy that has muscle mass and bone density, or the guy that, doesn't and is fat and sloppy? And like, I saw quick aside, I actually saw an interesting reel by a surgeon who was saying they did, I think they did a lot of joint replacement type stuff. So osteopath, right? I don't remember.
Orthopedic surgeon.
Orthopedic surgeon. Thank you. Yeah. So she was saying that she's running into an increasing number of women at younger ages who show extreme bone degeneration. And she replaced the shoulder of a woman not long ago. And she said she said it was almost like screwing into butter.
Yeah.
That like there was almost nothing for the screw to grab onto. She said it was an obese woman that just, she's not active. She doesn't move. And if you're not eating well and you're not moving, like imagine, and she said she was 30 years old. That's worse than you'd want to see in an 80-year-old.
Yeah. Well, and I think what people get wrong is they think that strength training is going to reduce their capability and their skeletal system because it's going to make them dense. And when they hear dense, they think thick.
Yeah.
And instead, what they should think with a bone is porous flexibility. You get more porous flexibility.
Yeah.
And your bones need to be flexible. If they are not porous, they're rigid and very soft and easily broken.
Yeah,
What
they get
makes a
this
bone hard is that
almost
flexibility.
brittleness to them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
you've ever tried to break a fresh limb off a tree,
Yeah.
like a green limb, it's exceptionally hard to break because of the flexibility, and that's a different kind of density. It's a fibrous density, and in the bones, it's a porous density, and so you actually gain more porous surface area in the bones and make them healthier that way, which is great.
Yeah, it's not just calcium crystals. People think it's like
No.
calcium, like you do get more calcium density for sure, but most of the mass of your bones is actually like a collagen,
Right.
like ligament type of material. It's not like the crystals sort of like hang on a lattice work of that, but it's like they're not what people think they are, I think oftentimes. And they don't get bigger. They just get more dense.
The density also is in the sheath that surrounds the bone. You have a sheath around your bones.
Yeah.
And the sheath being strong keeps the bone intact when it bends. And if that sheath breaks, that's where you see like compound fractures and things like that. And so having those strong collagen and sort of collagen, it's almost like a tendon. And
yes,
it surrounds the bone. And it's real hard if you've ever tried to cut tendon with scissors.
Well, it provides that tension too, like a car, like a car that the way that cars are built now with an Omni frame, they don't have like a frame like a truck where it's just a body sitting on a frame. It's integrated into I don't want to say the interior of the car, but it's a skeletal system. Yeah. And a house is similar too. Like if you build the framework of a house, it's not that strong. But as soon as you put the outer sheath on it, and you put the sheetrock and everything else, it's far more rigid. And that's sort of the effect that this sheath has on bone. It's providing a rigidity. It's providing it's very flexible, and it helps basically keep things together.
Well, and one thing I'll say is that this is another sort of shameless plug, but hypertrophy is functional.
Yeah.
I primarily bodybuild. You all know that. I will.
Aren't you like so muscle bound though that you just can't? You basically are useless, like outside the gym.
Yeah, that's right. But I will say that for people who say that working on machines and doing targeted work and things like this is not functional. Well, the reality is, and I'll give myself a plug here, is that my deadlift stays between 455 and 485 for a set of 3 or 4, no matter what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever been below that in years. Right. And so there is a definite strength that comes just with a fibrous density in the muscle. A bigger muscle that is trained consistently will really be stronger. Yeah. And then of course, if you train with intent and explosiveness on your concentric motions, you're always going to have that type 2 strength. And in fact, I will say another plug for one of our clients, Joe Payton, is he's about to hit a PR on deadlift that he's never had. He's a hypertrophy client.
Yeah.
It's not a strength client. He's a hypertrophy client. But he's gotten so much stronger as he's gotten bigger because he's now got all that muscle mass to work with. So just something to note, if people say, hey, I want to do functional training, hypertrophy is functional. Strength training is functional. All those things are functional. Because moving weight across a plane is the most functional you can get.
I was a few years ago doing some yard work where I was doing tree trimming basically. And my neighbor came up and talked to me for a minute, and he said something about like me being muscle bound or whatever. And I was kind of like, I'm doing yard work. Like, it's like a thing that guys say sometimes. I think it's an insecurity thing, but it's just like, and it's not my current neighbor, by the way, it's a previous neighbor, but like, it's just one of those like, why would you go there? That's weird. It's not really a thing. Like, I mean, the other thing too is like, I knew very well, like, put a bar on my back, I could squat deeper than he could ever go with regardless of weight, because like I have that hip flexibility from training. It's like, no, the muscle bound thing is this weird old wives' tale. It's not true. Yes, you can lose a lot of flexibility if you just train. If you train to even just training full range of motion, you're going to be better than people that just sit around.
Well, and I think they'll say, well, you can't reach up to the middle of your back. Well, it's because my back is big. It's not because I
What's
lack
the functional
flexibility.
reason for touching the middle of your back? Can anyone answer that question for me?
Yeah, it's not because of that. And also, if you look at, I'm like 9 inches from the floor on either side in my front split. I'm not muscle bound at all. Extremely flexible. And I do that by lifting weights in deep ranges.
Yeah.
So that's primarily how I get that. So
yeah, cool. Well, so Amanda, what are you up to?
I think that my cut is going in the right direction again. Last week I had mentioned not that it wasn't going, it was just going slower than it should have been. I think it might have just been because I was sick, holding on to some inflammation, and so feeling better. Things are moving the right way at the right pace this time. Did do something to my knee, which I brought up last week. One knee has just been like this aggravating pain that whenever I do a lot of hamstring work, it's just annoying and achy. So not really like an injury, just something I have to be aware of and work with. So we switched some of my hamstring movements to a little bit lighter and doing tempo work instead of just regular repetitions. That seems to be helping. There was one day last week that I had to come home in the middle of the workout, so I was like, I'll just finish stuff at my home gym, forgetting the fact that our leg curl machine always causes hyperextension, and I didn't anticipate it, let it go down too hard, and hurt the other knee. So it seems to be in the MCL area, but is feeling a lot better now. I took some days off or just strategically pushed certain exercises to the end of the week last week and went a little lighter. That's feeling a lot better. It was hurting, like even just to walk. I was kind of limping, but now I've got some range of motion and been able to do the workouts. So I seem to be healing really quickly from it, which I really appreciate. One of the benefits of being consistent on diet and nutrition and working out is your recovery time. It can be a lot shorter from injuries.
Yeah, especially when you're not eating a bunch of foods that are inflammatory for you. That can be just a big game changer when it comes to how you recover from those minor tweaks. Yeah. So for me, I'm still recovering. Obviously, my upper body's still coming along. I did bench 245 for a set of 5 today. I wanted to do a 3x5 with it. It was a big jump from last week, and I got one set of 5, and I went back down to 235. I might have been able to manage it, but it would have been real dicey. And my left shoulder injury is real easy right now with how things are atrophied. So it went fine. Still making progress. My back is not as much weaker as on the left side as my right side. Some of the pulling movements are getting a little bit closer now, which is good. I've been adding like reps or weight to back isolation movements lately. Still doing a lot of rear delt work. It's weird because when I do isolation rear delt work, there's actually not that much difference now, but there's the very obvious size difference. And I really feel it when I'm benching. So obviously there's still something there, but so still making progress there. I squatted today, went really well. I squatted 455 for 3 sets of 5. So that's just flying along with no trouble. It was a lot harder. it's definitely starting to feel heavy now. I think I'm really thinking I'm going to work toward around the end of the year, squatting a 500 for a 5x5 if I can, in like an hour. I think I can do it. So that's kind of like a stretch goal I have right now. So I'm going to basically work up to a 500 3x5, maybe in a couple weeks. I don't know. Depends on how things go. I think it's pretty much right there for me. And then adding the additional reps after that's going to be where the real chore is. But I might just kind of linear progression, like do the 3x5 and then then do 2 reps, then do 3 reps, like just add reps until I get to the end there. So yeah, that's pretty much how it's going though. I'm going to probably start bumping up carbs a little bit, for the healing and recovery purposes. I'm still training 2 days a week, sometimes 3, kind of seeing where this goes. I've never trained so little, so I'm just kind of curious what this does. I still am a lot smaller in my upper body, but I think that's more because I just can't lift heavy. I mean, the biggest I've got has been from actually lifting heavy, and I just can't press enough to challenge my upper body right now. So the shoulders, chest, all that, it's pretty small right now for me. I'm just hoping that I think that's more of a strength and stimulus type of thing than anything else. Cool. So let's get to our topics. We've got several to cover today. These will be things that are holding you back. These are things that we often see people struggling with once they've been training for a little while, sometimes for a long time even. These are things that all of us even still struggle with, as we've all trained for many years regularly here, and we still like sometimes struggle with some of these things. Um, and also I'll talk with, let's do the first one, which could even be applicable to me right now as I try to go from benching baby weights to actual adult weights. Lack of patience, quitting because results aren't consistent. So um, Bill, could you talk about that a little bit? I think that people, and can be particularly true, like when you first start going to the gym, if you haven't been training before, you've never trained before, it's been many years since you did, you're going to make very rapid progress almost no matter what you do. Depending on what you're doing, however, you can really run out of roadway pretty quickly. And that those noob gains, just like you have this honeymoon phase when you first start training, you practically see changes in your body and strength on a daily basis. So how should people be looking at gauging progress better and sort of like staying disciplined? I don't like the word motivation, but like staying disciplined in the gym and really like looking to progress. I mean, you don't want to look to you do want to look to progress for motivation as much as you can, but it's not always going to be there in the sense that you want it to be.
Yeah, I have a great illustration for this, right? So one of the things that people fail to do is give something long enough, like we said here, with lack of patience. The issue with that is you're not really seeing the results prescribed. Somebody might say to you, hey, um, this routine is going to win you gains 70% of the time, right? 30%, you're going to have tough workouts. You're not really going to see much out of it. 70% of the time, it's a win, right? But if people go, well, I did 10 workouts and I feel like I got nothing out of 5 or 6, you had 5 or 6 tough workouts that weren't that good, right? Or you didn't feel like you got enough stimulus, etc. They go, well, see, it's a lose 60% of the time. But look, if you're flipping a coin, right, it's 50% heads, 50% tails. That's the probability of the average of probability there. If you flip that coin 10 times, you might get 7 tails and 3 heads, right? You're going to have to flip it 50, 100, 200, 1,000 times to get closer to that 50-50 average. And that's going to pan out the more and more you do that. So it's sort of the same thing here. You can't give a routine, a diet, etc. You can't give it a short amount of time and try to gauge its efficacy, right,
Yeah.
in that short amount of time. Remember, we're always working on the law of averages. Nothing is going to be 100% all the time. It doesn't matter if the programming's good. It doesn't matter if the diet's good. There is something in it that's not going to work a portion of the time. And you're going to have losing streaks, right? That's normal. Okay.
Yeah.
But if you zoom out and you go out of, 250 workout days of the year, right? I had 30 or 40 that didn't go my way. Well, you've got a winning program on your hands. You've just got to give it time to play out and play through and give you those smaller, consistent wins, right?
Yeah.
Stop trying to hit home runs in a 10-week meso. Stop trying to do that. Take the base hits, right? Take the base hits, and then in a year, in 2 years, then you can look back and go, well, is this program really working? And in some ways it would have, and in some ways it wouldn't have. And then you can make adjustments and backtest that as you go into your new program and new diet adjustments, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the best ways to look at it. It's a game of percentages. We want a consistent result over time. We don't want an explosive result in less time. In fact, I would say that if results are explosive in a shorter amount of time, those gains are probably a little more tenuous than gains that are slow, controlled base
And
hits.
injury
along the way.
risk is pretty much
Yeah.
always higher with rapid change.
Yeah, absolutely. And because there's so much change happening, of course,
Yeah.
right? You run into that. And so I think that's one thing. And I think, Amanda talking about her diet going in the right direction. right? Her cut this time going in the right direction, right? The worst thing she could do, and I know she knows this because she's experienced, is to just change everything. Once something just stops or stalls, is to go, oh, that's it. I'm giving up. I'm doing this thing. Because now you might move to something that doesn't give you as consistent results. And you might end up on sort of a longer losing streak, right?
When you
Because
don't know what, if you do get results, you don't even know what variable you've manipulated because you just changed
Yeah.
100 variables. And so
Correct.
like, you're not even in a position to know like how to get progress in the future. You don't know what worked because you don't know what didn't work.
Yeah. And I would say for anyone building strength past the newbie phase, building strength and building muscle, which are congruent in most cases, building strength and building muscle is a glacial process, right?
Mm-hmm.
Losing fat can be a little bit of a faster process, but again, you're still looking at a 1-to-1 on risk and reward there, right? If it took you 6 months to put on 30 pounds of fat, plan on it taking 6 months to come off. It may not take that long. However, we're going to be happy with a 1-to-1. We're not going to be greedy. We're not going to overdo it. We're not going to crash ourselves and start doing different things or quit because we go, well, that didn't work immediately. Instead, we're going to go, I really need to give this time. That's why we tell coaching clients, it's why we tell anybody on a program, give it some time. People will look at you bug-eyed when you go, give it a year. They go, that's a long time. Not really, right? In
I think
fact,
part of this too comes down to also embracing the refinement of following the process.
yes,
Like,
the discipline to follow the process. That's the other thing you mentioned. If you have a plan, stick to it. Don't freestyle. When you feel like something's going south, don't automatically freak out and go, oh my gosh, I've got so much to lose here. You don't. It's not like that. It's not going to happen. The good stuff isn't going to happen in a day. The bad stuff isn't going to happen. Right. And so you got to understand. And even now, when we look at emerging research in these matters, which physiological research is stuff that's a little more reliable because you're talking about taking inference from empirical evidence, which is all you can do physiologically, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a little more reliable because it's something we can see. However, what I will say is now you see the evidence pointing to things like, well, if you're injured and you take a week off or 2 weeks off, you're really not losing anything, right? Or, hey, you made some big gains. You only need to work that muscle once a week to keep those gains and maintain them while you work on something else. It doesn't have to be all or nothing all the time, right? And so that's what I would say is you've got to view it sort of like that coin flip analogy. Have you really given it enough time to see if this is a winning strategy or not? And if you're 12 weeks in and you're going, it's not working, you haven't given it enough time.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, and I think related to that too is our next one, not adjusting when life changes, and being too rigid with your routine when just life variables hit you and you feel like you got to stick to some sort of model. Obviously, we just talked about sticking to a plan, but there can be reasonable ways maybe to adjust a plan when something happens. And because sometimes there's a tendency, I think, that people will have, they sort of get in a rhythm, they're doing, whatever it is, they're on their diet, they're on their program, everything's going well. Life introduces variables, and sometimes it's actually prudent to make a fairly significant change. You might have to like step away from being in a caloric deficit for a time because of an injury or whatever that might be. And have some degree of like staying flexibility. That's not laziness when you're responding to something that is outside your control, that's, hitting you, and you have to make a reasonable response to it. That's being smart. But you have to be able to be dynamic in those types of situations. I think sometimes people feel, and it can also lead to like discouragement and walking away, kind of like the last one we just covered. Look at, whatever might be coming and go, okay, am I trying to get out of training because of like lack of motivation and laziness or lack of discipline? Or is this something I should genuinely respond to and actually like change my plan? And if it's the latter, then it's actually responsible of you to go, hey, something shifted here. I need to make some changes. How do I make a plan for success instead of letting everything sort of collapse and that sort of thing, because that can lead to like, you look back and it's like, wow, it's been 6 months since I paid any attention to my diet, 6 months since I done any training, and I'm in a place that didn't want to end up here, kind of thing. I think,
This is
go ahead.
this is one of those ones that is just so hard to adjust, because the first step of getting into a routine, like in the first place, is difficult for most people.
It is.
So, like, now you've developed this routine. You know what time you're going to the gym. You know what time your meals are. You've been on this for a while. Now a wrench is thrown in this routine, and it's like, wait, I just nailed this down. How do I adjust to this? And
Yeah.
people are very often all or nothing. I try to push, all or something, because sometimes you are all in, and that's great. It's great when you get into that flow and everything's just working. But the opposite of that should not be to do nothing. It should be to continue
Yeah.
something. So, um, if you have a schedule change, then cool. You still have the same amount of hours in a day than you did before, just shift things around a little bit, like, view it a little bit more of, like, if you could take a block of time
Yeah.
of everything that you do in a day, and you could just, manipulate where those blocks go. There's gonna be a time for you to find. It's just gonna be different than before if
Yeah.
you're having to adjust to a schedule, just as an example. Um, Injuries are different than schedule
Yeah.
changes. There are real adjustments that have to be done, but you can keep your same routine in that instance and change what you're doing during that time. Maybe it's some sort of physical therapy then, rather than being in the gym. Um, Sometimes it's continuing to work out. Let's say you have broken a bone on one side. Keep working out the other side. It actually will enhance the healing of the side
I
that's
literally
injured.
have a client doing this right now. He has a
Yeah.
broken hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of adjustments that
And
can
we
be
we
made.
made program changes for that. He's still training the other side, and then we adjusted what we could so that we can like accommodate the hand, and he can still train a lot of things on his lower body. Like, he can't deadlift, but he can do a lot of other things that are similar. And so we've made those changes because it's a reasonable response to a circumstance that's ultimately outside of our control. And even some, like, I've had clients that, like, they know that they're coming up on working 70, 80 hours a week because for like 2 or 3 months. Well, then we're not going to be training 4 days a week anymore, because that's actually
Mhm.
asking for injury, like. And so in those cases, I'll usually shift, like, if it's extreme like that, we might shift to training 1 day a week, and there's an optional second day that's usually a lot lighter and easier, so that we're just basically trying to keep what we've got and also keep them healthier during this time when your body's just basically like stressed out. It's really
Yeah.
hard on your body to work like that. And that's a reasonable response, especially to a temporary condition. But don't try to like power through certain things. Or certain things you should power through, obviously, but something like that where you're courting injury risk, you're looking at like just way overdoing it and probably reducing your quality of life severely, like, that's when it's time to go, okay, I should not necessarily exit the gym, but just dial back how much training stress you're engaging in
Mhm.
for a time, or where you're applying the training stress. We play with the variables in response to outside circumstances changing, and that's a totally normal and, I think, reasonable way of going about this business.
Yeah, not every routine change is unexpected either. A lot of times women who are pregnant having babies will say, "Life changed, now I can't do this workout anymore." Actually, you
Yeah.
had 9 months to prepare for what your plan was going to be after the baby is gonna be here. Yes, you're gonna take some time off, but it's not like I've been pregnant for 9, actually 10 months in reality sometimes, and
Yeah.
surprise, oh my goodness, there's a baby here.
Yeah.
No, you knew that was coming, so you could have developed a plan during the course of your pregnancy, um, for
Yeah.
how you're gonna handle that afterward. Now, you don't know how difficult or easy that baby's gonna be, how much or how little they're gonna sleep, if they're gonna have feeding issues or not. There's a lot of things that are unforeseen,
Yeah.
but since you know a major life change is coming, you
Yeah.
have the opportunity to plan ahead for things like that.
Yeah, and I don't think the plan has to be huge either in that case.
No,
You
not
know,
at all.
No.
Very gradual.
with pregnancy, one of the first things we focus on, of course, is avoiding pelvic floor dysfunction post, post pregnancy, and of course, reducing abdominal separation, recreating strength in the in the rectus and transverse abdominis. Those are little things that you can do,
Hmm.
throughout a day or over a couple of days, right?
Yeah.
And listen, that's a great workout
Hmm.
when you're in new baby territory. It's an awesome workout. Trust me, you're going to feel it after
Hmm.
baby. So just even that stuff going, okay, I'm taking 6 to 8 weeks here. I'm working on pelvic floor. I'm working on, abdominal tension. This is great. Doesn't have to be all or nothing
Yeah.
like
Well, and
this.
during the pregnancy too, I think there's a tendency for a lot of
Mhm.
women to be like, oh, I'm pregnant, I need to stop training. That is
Yeah.
the time for you to train to make sure that things go as well as possible during the pregnancy and after. You do not want to be in horrible shape going through one of the most hard on your body like events that you're going to go through. You want to be in good shape for that. And there's a tendency to, stop eating enough protein and stop training. Those are the two things that you need most of all while you're pregnant. It'll help you retain muscle mass. It'll help keep you in better shape. It'll help keep you more metabolically efficient, which is also something that's compromised due to pregnancy hormones. Just the elevated progesterone and prolactin alone cause insulin insensitivity. Like all of these factors that can be compromising to health or a challenge to health in pregnancy are severely limited by, or mitigated by training and still being on your diet. I've seen people walk away from their training and their diet during a time when they're pregnant, and it's just not it's not wise in my opinion to do so. Like that is the time to train. You
Yeah.
can prepare your body for the event just like an athlete prepares for an event that's coming up. In the same way, when you're pregnant, you can prepare for delivery and then recovery after. And like you guys said, then you also have plenty of time to plan for what's my game plan after when I can really start moving again. This is all very doable, and it's a faster road to recovery if you come into that in good shape, carrying a good amount of muscle mass, and you're well fueled. And it's also just better for the development of the baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. That's actually one of the first stops on avoiding pelvic floor dysfunction is during
Yeah.
the pregnancy. If you're not,
Yeah.
it's a good time that if you're not already squeezing your pelvic floor when you squat, right? You should be. You should learn
Yeah.
to do those things. Squeeze your pelvic floor when you're deadlifting, squeeze your pelvic floor when you're squatting, squeeze your pelvic floor when you're benching.
Yeah.
All of those places are great spots to do that. Modifying core work so that the transverse abdominis is the focus to help
Yeah.
prevent abdominal separation as much as possible. You know,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Cool. So, skipping the basics, I think we just kind of covered this. But let's just spend just a couple minutes on it. So, what we mean by that is drinking enough water, getting your protein, getting your steps, and your sleep. We're not talking about training in the gym. We know that's a given. But the other thing is chasing hacks. If anyone, if you are you're training and stuff like that, and you see some advertisement or some friends tells you about anything that involves language like biohacking or hack or this one thing that blah 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 or some supplement. Look, humans are made to eat a good diet and to move properly. If you are not
Hmm.
doing those things, there is no supplement on earth. There is no anything around. There's no shaker weight. There's no vibrating thing. There's no like magnets or tea or anything along those lines that can possibly substitute for how beneficial those things are for you. Be sure that if you're doing this, if you see those types of things, just look at it and go, is this the something that humans need to thrive? The answer is probably not. You might throw in some tea because you like it. That's fine. I don't care. But as far as like what's going to really move the needle on your health and well-being, it's making sure you stick with the basics and don't pursue anything else until you are hitting the basics, because there's really no point. You want to talk like this is an 80-20 rule. This is like 90-10 or more. Don't worry about getting
Hmm.
various supplements or whatever. Like there are supplements that are beneficial and we've talked to them. There aren't that many. It's not mysterious. It's not crazy. And you don't have to go to an MLM to get one. What you do probably need is better sleep hygiene, more water, more protein, and a better structure to your programming. Going outside and walking, getting your steps, getting sunlight, getting cold exposure, whatever it is, depending on where you live and what time of the year it is. but like
Yeah.
those are the things you should be focusing on if you're not feeling well. You shouldn't be worrying about something you saw on social media, someone saying that this juice cleanse helped them or this tea helped them or whatever else it may be. I still go back to the story I saw of someone that like talked to my wife about hiring us to help with some health issues that she was going through. And she wound up not doing so. And then like a couple months after our discussions, like she was posting online about how much better she was feeling because she got some like lemon ginger tea from some friend that was in an MLM, and how much it was like, making her feel better and all this other stuff. Well, it came with a whole morning routine that you would drink the tea while you were doing, but it was go outside, drink a protein shake, and walk first thing in the morning, and then drink your tea. And then
Great
it's
morning
like,
routine.
oh, yeah, it's a great morning routine. And even drinking the tea can be good for you. But it was like, this tea is not doing anything to give you the benefits that you just mentioned you're getting. It's the fact that you drink protein first thing in the morning, which is very important, particularly for women. You got outside, you went for a walk. That's what made you feel better. It wasn't some tea,
Yeah.
but it's like a lot of these products come with, it's funny, like instructions for doing the things that actually work, and attribute to like, oh, well, you bought expensive tea from us or this expensive powder from us. That's what's doing it. And it's like, no, you can do all those things without the supplement. You get the full benefit. The supplement just happened to be there because someone sold you on it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
the other thing I would say from a scientific perspective is, sorry, go ahead, Amanda.
I was going to say this topic is one of the first things that I ask if I see somebody that I'm working with have slow progress. I will not be asking what supplements you're taking or what you'd like to add. I'm not demonizing supplements. We all take or have taken tons of them. But I'm going to ask you, how's your hydration? I'm going to ask you, how's your sleep? Or how many hours you've been sleeping? What's the quality of your sleep? I'm going to be asking you how many steps you're getting. Are you hitting your protein goals? And I won't ask anything else until I have those answered and solved.
Yeah. I think from a scientific perspective too, to what Justin's speaking to, is stop believing their stories.
Yeah.
They're going to tell you stories, even with stuff that's pharmaceutical technology. NAD Plus is a great one, very expensive, and pushed on a lot of people.
Yeah.
And what they'll tell you is that NAD Plus is a naturally occurring compound in cells that causes fermenting metabolism of sugar. Yeah, they don't know that. And you need to not believe that. They'll go, oh, you're deficient in NAD Plus, because NAD Plus was invented by mashing a bunch of stuff together, treating it with acetyl alcohol and various different, reactive liquids, and then injecting it into something. That's an outside interference. That is not indicative that your body produces something like NAD Plus. So when someone says something like that to you, disbelieve them immediately, right?
Yeah.
Unless it's something that comes with a whole host of years and years and years of medical evidence, including observable natural phenomena of that same variety, right? And so that's one thing. They'll get you. They'll say,
it's really, honestly, the whole NAD plus thing is like, just take glutathione, because that's all it's doing is it's increasing glutathione, and the price is not that different. Like, just go get injectable glutathione.
Yeah. And the thing is, you won't even really know if that's what's making the difference if you're improving other parts of your basic routine anyway.
No, you won't. Right? And don't bother, again, if you're not getting the basics right. Do not bother. Do not spend your money. Do not spend your time. Get the basics right. Don't try to compensate for them with supplements or something like that. That's basically drug abuse.
Yes. Yep.
My name is Justin Johnson with High Calling Fitness. Maybe you're tired, gaining weight, waking up with joint pain, back pain, and a body that just doesn't feel like it used to. You've tried to fix it, but nothing seems to last. What if you don't need another app or crash diet, but a real coach, someone to meet you where you're at and walk with you step by step? At High Calling Fitness, our coaching comes to you wherever you are. No matter where you live, small town or city, across the country or across the world, your health still matters. You don't have to go it alone. We build personalized plans based on your goals, your schedule, and your equipment, even if it's just a set of dumbbells in a small space. This isn't just training, it's a personal partnership. You'll get weekly updates, one-on-one access to your coach, and ongoing support through Zoom and Slack every step of the way. We're here to help you build strength, restore energy, and claim the life you were meant to live. Book a free consult today. Let's talk about your goals and see how we can build something better together. High Calling Fitness, built for the everyday, ready for the extraordinary. So the other one that I know a lot of, I mean, this is probably half of Americans on some level, is emotional eating, and using food as like a coping or reward mechanism. I think that this is a particular struggle. I think I see it more in women. I see it plenty in men too, don't get me wrong. But in women, I think it's a harder habit to break for some reason. And Amanda, can you kind of elaborate on kind of like what you've seen in the people that you've helped? And maybe you have some personal experience with this too. I don't know.
There is definitely a binge restrict issue that a lot of women struggle with, far more than men. And it's almost like a reward punishment system.
Yeah.
So you're rewarding yourself for either something good or just getting through a stressful day.
Yeah.
You're like letting this be a reward for you,
Yeah.
choosing the wrong kind of food. Or, just high stress makes you crave things that are highly satiating anyway. So it's a habit that needs to be formed to choose your what's on plan first, if you have a
Yeah.
plan. Um, I would say a tool that could be beneficial here is when you have a craving, set a timer for 15 minutes. If you still have that craving in 15 minutes, you know, maybe
Yeah.
have 2 bites of that thing and then move on, eat your protein. But there is a risk there that you're gonna continue eating whatever that thing is that you just tasted. So, what would be even better is go ahead and chug some water, eat something that's full of protein, and then see if you still have the craving. So just a couple
Go
of
for a
tools
walk.
there. Go for a
Yeah.
walk, not these aren't always cravings. Sometimes these are planned days in advance. Like when I finish this day, I'm
Yeah.
gonna go stop for fast food. Um, just change the reward. If you really have to be reward focused, change the reward to something else. You know,
Yeah.
maybe it's a movie you've been looking forward to watching with your family. Doesn't have to be a food thing. Like,
It
just
doesn't.
change the reward to something else. I do believe we have planned an entire podcast on this, with having to do with food drive and things
Yeah.
like that, because some people have a higher food drive than others, and
They do.
that's where a lot of this comes from. Some people don't go to food whenever they're
Yeah.
stressed out. They may, go to smoking or drinking alcohol or something like that, but it's not always a
Yeah.
food thing. Or they may go into endless hours of doom scrolling. There are different ways different people handle stress, but specifically, emotional eating seems to be um, very much a female issue, and something we mentioned last time is a lot of that having to do with around the cycle. Women
Hmm.
will make excuses for how they're feeling hormonally, and therefore I should get to eat whatever I want to eat.
Yeah. Yeah. I think part of this, there's two things I want to mention. I think one, too, is like changing the reward is good. I think that also changing your mentality around what's deserving of a reward is also good,
Yeah.
because going through yet another day, it's just a day. Yep. Every day has its stresses. Some days are tough, but we have to get to a place where surviving for a day is not an accomplishment. That is, to me, kind of on the level of the, like, every kid gets a trophy, like participation trophy type
Mhm.
mentality. And I think that moving away from that is what's most beneficial. The other thing too is address the stress directly with managing the stress. We've done episodes on this, but participate in activities that reduce your stress. In the long run, binge eating does not reduce stress. In the moment, it feels good. You get a dopamine hit from it, but you're just stacking another chemical on top of chemicals, and it's going to probably result in feeling guilty later. And you're not going to feel as good because you're not healthy if you do it a lot, because now you're fat and you have metabolic disease and that type of thing.
Yeah, I think
What you
there's
Go
some
ahead.
wisdom there, Justin, that maybe just cracked open in that statement, is that it's not a reward. Not if you look at it objectively. It's actually a
Mhm.
punishment, right?
Yeah.
Because
It's kind of like punishing yourself.
it's going against everything that you're trying to accomplish. You're punishing yourself, right?
Yeah.
You're not really rewarding yourself. It's a backwards psychology on that. And so I think, that's also something that's really good maybe to think about is as you're looking at what's deserving of reward, look at what's actually a reward, you know,
Yeah.
and look, I'm not against rewards that are food. If you've been on a diet and you've been on it for 8 weeks, you've lost 10, 11 pounds, sure, have a weekend, eat whatever you want. It's not going to hurt anything, right?
Yeah.
But you're also not going to feel as good as you feel when you're on your diet. You're going to find that almost immediately, you know?
Especially when you've been dieting strictly, you're probably going to
Yeah.
feel terrible,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
And
can,
it's definitely not a once weekly thing.
No,
and you
no,
need,
it's
Definitely
yeah,
not.
you
no.
need to be careful when you do that too, because then it can lead to like, oh, I feel awful. Then the spiral
Hmm.
continues. Then
Sure.
Monday you just pick back up on the binging. So you have to
The,
be careful with and I will say, biblically, well, there's feasting in the
yeah.
Bible. Feasting is a celebration for various things, and it's usually tied to being like thankful for what's been given or provided by God. And there's a wisdom in celebrating God's grace, God's gifts, and those types of things. But it's never as a reward for banal everyday activities. It's never
Hmm.
biblically as a way out for feeling poorly about yourself. It's always a celebration, like a wedding feast, a celebration of something new that's special and monumental. It's the celebration of like the year of jubilee. Like there were various feasts for various reasons, but they were generally tied to thanking God for what's been given, and a recognition of that, not this sort of like means of stress reduction. When you have stress, food is probably the last way you should be dealing with it.
Mm,
Food it's not going to make you feel better afterward. It certainly is not. It's and you're stacking chemicals on top of chemicals in your brain. What you should be looking to do is managing that stress with activities that promote, one, you to have less stress next time you have the same kind of day, but two, like actually addressing like the cortisol is really high right now. What do I do about that? And
Yeah.
ways of interacting that, like we talked about, are like vagus nerve stimulation, go outside, go for a walk, go read a book. I think a lot of people don't realize what a 10-minute walk can do. Not scrolling on your phone, just go for a walk, maybe listen to something that you enjoy, something that's not stimulating. But if there's something that, it could be music or whatever it is, or just listening to nothing. When I finish my workday, I typically go for like a 10-minute walk. I have a sort of like a 15 to 20-minute ritual that I do to step away from the stress of all the hats that I wear for my various businesses. And that's hard to like disconnect from all of those. So the way I deal with that is I have like a whole series of steps that I follow that allow me to step away from all of that. And I think we should do like a stress management episode at some point,
mm,
but just know that there are I'd say them, they're very banal activities you can participate in that can have a profound effect on your mental state that you can participate in after a work day that are going to be far more effective at actually dealing with the problem instead of masking it with food. And it's a for some people it's a very ingrained habit because it started in childhood. You grew up in a family where that was the what everybody did at the end of the day was like we eat our stress, and it's like our reward for finishing with whatever you did. And it's like almost tied to like family interaction and social interaction, so it's like tied to good things. And so stepping away from that can be very difficult. But what I would say is, like, if you can reorient your family culture around finding more beneficial activities to participate in that don't add to that stress and that don't harm you, you'll be in a far better place, obviously physically, but spiritually too.
Yeah. I mean, if you're doing this all the time, it's no longer a reward, it's a routine. So it's time
That's
to
true. Yeah.
change the routine. But one other way that I see the stress or emotional eating come out is like, let's say you did accidentally not pay attention to how many chips you just ate. And now your mentality is, well, I messed up the whole day. I might as well just completely go overboard today. I'll do better tomorrow.
Yeah.
No, you can stop there. You can just go ahead and get right back on plan that
Yeah.
day, right after the too many chips.
Yeah.
So rather than punishing yourself, which you'll have to ultimately recover from later,
And you'll feel way worse the next day if you like go way past a bag of chips. You just will. I remember talking to a client not long ago about how he said that they all they did is they went out for dinner with some friends, and he like just ate whatever. He skipped a meal earlier that day so that he could kind of accommodate the calories. And he's just like, why did I feel bad for like 2 days? And he didn't eat like bad stuff. He had like a pulled pork sandwich and fries and a soda or something. Like it wasn't horrible food, but it was like the quality of the food. It was restaurant food. So it probably had crummy oils in it. It was probably low quality meat. Like all those things kind of add up. They tend to be more processed. And so like then it made it harder for him to stick to his diet the next couple of days, and he was tired and lethargic. It's really hard for you to be disciplined if you're tired and lethargic.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of this comes down to trying to think in food in terms of not how will I feel while I'm eating it, but how will I feel after, the moments, hours, days after, because it can have that kind of effect. Shifting mentality around what will this do to me? What will this is, one that should be fuel for your body. You should be viewing it as practically as possible, but also like, how is this going to affect me afterward? Think of the after effects more than the present effects. And it can really change how you go into the whole thing and avoid a lot of temptation. Another one that we see often is chasing novelty. So program hopping, diet hopping, like never sticking with the same thing for very long because you don't get the results you're seeking or something like that. Especially program hopping is really common, and not even necessarily program hopping, but like, oh, I'm going to do 3x5 for a while. Then someone does that for like a few months, or not even a few months, usually like just a few weeks. And then like, oh, my friend did, 5-3-1. So they do 5-3-1 for a few more weeks, and like, oh, that didn't really seem to do anything. Nothing seems to be working. Well, all of those programs take time. The biological processes are very slow. And a program like 5-3-1, like you got to run that for 12 weeks before you get anything out of it. And you can get a lot out of it, but like all of these are meant to be run for a while, and you run them for a short duration, expecting quick results. Good luck. Diet hopping too. You go from carnivore to keto to paleo to I don't even know if anyone does paleo anymore, but like then you're Mediterranean, then you're vegan, and like not that we're into fad diets, but like even the limited benefits they give you, they're just not going to be there if you only do it for a short duration anyway.
Yeah. 5-3-1's a really good example for this, because if you just look at it on its face, it looks like a 4-week program. But if you actually dig into what Wendler was trying to do with this, it's supposed to be a long-term program. Like there's ways to repeat it. But yeah, program hopping is going to leave you sore all the time. You're never going to master a particular skill, and you're just never going to get the growth. I mean, if you don't squat for a really long time and then you go to squat, your skill is not there anymore. It takes time to build that up. So let's say you're going from a program that has squats to one that doesn't, to one that has it again. Like you're never going to master that if you're just hopping here and there just because you want to see immediate results.
Yeah. Yeah. Another one too would be poor time management. A lot of people think they're too busy, but the question I would ask anybody that says they're too busy to spend time in the gym or to prep their food is, okay, let's see how much time you spent on Netflix, YouTube, scrolling, whatever. I've never had someone be like, oh, well, I don't do that. Like, I'm sure you're out there. Go ahead and raise your hand, but like in general, if you want to find the time for it, you will find the time for it, because you're making time to doom scroll. You're making time to watch whatever on Netflix. I have gone seasons of life where I think like the last few years, it wasn't until this year that I actually like started watching movies again once in a while. Like last year and the year before, I think I watched like one movie in those years each. Like that was it. Cause it's like, I literally don't have time for it. And other things are more important. So like if you're participating in entertainment activities that are entirely optional, that you don't need, and that actually can be harmful anyway, and you don't have time to go to the gym, then there's something probably very wrongly ordered. There is time for anything if you care enough. I think this is a mentality change. And if you genuinely don't have time, then then you're one of the few people that has a harder struggle. But that's when you look at what you're actually doing with your time and go like, okay, so what needs to change? Am I working 80 hours a week nonstop? That's not sustainable. That will kill you. So that's when it's time to find another job, or just to talk to your employer and say like, can I not work 80 hours a week? That's where you should be like looking to make those changes, because it's not acceptable to be living a lifestyle long term where you're actually working excessively. And I get some people have extremely complicated situations. I'm not talking to you if that's the case, but for 99% of people who say, I do not have the time or I'm too busy to go to the gym, then what kind of responsibilities do you have in your life that are keeping you from this? Because I don't think it's responsibilities. It's probably recreational activities and pleasure seeking.
Yeah. I think one of the best ways to think of it is all the things that you spend your time on that aren't absolutely necessary. Um, you should view those things in seasons of life as a lease and not a mortgage.
Yeah.
Um, you know, you will have times in life where you go, am I going to renew this? Am I going to keep doing this if it locks out something that I probably need to be doing, better for my life? Like, am I
Yeah.
going to continue binge watching these series on Netflix right now when I really need to be in the gym?
Yeah.
And so treating that stuff like it's temporary anyway, going, that's not going to be a thing that I'm going to be able to have in every season of my life. I'm going to have to determine whether I renew the lease on some of my activities every season of life, is a really good way to look at it. You're not locked
Yeah.
in. You don't have to do that. You can make those changes and say, hey, for this season, I'm exchanging this out,
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. I think, Amanda, I'd like you to talk on the next one in particular, because I think for women, especially online, it's like the worst. Social pressure and peer sabotage, like people having these expectations on you that like, if you're that person that was don't if you're an overweight person and you're making a change or eating less, people have this expectation like, oh yeah, she always gets dessert or whatever it might be. It will feel weird to step out like that. And a lot of women like to give themselves and other women, from what I see, permission and even encouragement to continue on those types of binge behaviors, and have this mentality of like, nobody gets to tell me what to eat, but everybody gets to encourage me to eat more.
Yeah, women are very encouraging creatures by nature. It's usually a good thing to
Yeah.
be that way. Like, we're
Especially with
designed
like
this
your
way.
husband and
It's
your
a good
kids.
thing.
And yeah,
Exactly. Like the way you support each other, the way you support your family. Like, it's a good thing to be that way. But we see this become toxic, especially like if you see this in like rom-coms all the time where someone breaks up with this girl and they're like, you were too good for him anyway. Like, actually, you might not have been. You probably had some flaws. So we see that happen in all kinds of things. Like, you have been dieting for a while. You're doing a really good job. You know what? You can afford this. You deserve it. You've been
yeah,
staying so good on your diet. You can totally go out tonight and,
yeah,
do whatever you want to do. That's destructive to each other. That's not how we should be encouraging. We shouldn't stop encouraging one another, but we need to encouraging each other to good things.
yeah.
And and women are also on the opposite end of encouraging. We do tear each other down as well. Um, so, I've been the fit person that's been made fun of because, oh, she's not gonna come out. She goes to bed at 9. She's not fun, you know? Yeah, I do go to bed at 9. So, I'm also a lot
Guess
healthier than
what?
you. But, of course, there's times to let that go and actually stay out late and do things with friends. But,
Sure.
I've been on the end of being made fun of because I am disciplined
Yeah.
and have a routine. And, those things need to be reversed, I think, encouraging others to stick to the good habits that they do have, encouraging them to correct the habits that need to be corrected. That can take the nature that we already have given by God to be encouraging to one another, and use it correctly.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
so funny you mentioned the 9 o'clock bedtime. It reminds me of Stan Efferding when he said, "It doesn't matter what you want to do. At 10 o'clock, my carriage turns into a pumpkin."
Yep.
Period. That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, I think that like I've even seen or heard of, because my wife's been in them and then been kicked out. I think you have too, Amanda. Like Facebook groups where they have rules. It's for women where they have rules where it's like only encouraging, whatever. But the only
Yeah.
encouraging that's allowed is not encouraging to like stick to a diet or anything like that. It's encouraging women basically to like eat more. That's about it. And that's not a good type of encouragement. You're encouraging someone to sin if you're putting an expectation on
Hmm.
them that they continue binge eating or eating a diet that's clearly unhealthy for them and giving them bad results. So, like, encouragement is good, obviously, when you're encouraging someone towards a good behavior. But I think too that some women, they really struggle with when they begin just a journey with their fitness in general is they you the standing out, like the the person that eats the salad at lunch maybe or whatever it might be. Those
Yeah.
types of changes, because women tend to say things to each other, and even if it's not a negative thing, they don't like to be noticed for any of those types of deviations in behavior. That's something that you kind of just have to overcome and look at the bigger picture and go like, is this person's approval or disapproval worth me continuing to be unhealthy and less capable? Is that like,
Hmm.
is it worth diabetes in 10 years? This person's
Yeah.
approval to me? Like, if you look at it that way, you'd be like, no, well, why would I care? So, like, try to think, a lot of it comes down to like trying to think long term. Like, is this disapproval from this person in the moment really something I'm going to care about later when I get the results that I want?
Yeah. I really want to instill confidence in women that when they're making changes that are healthy, to be upfront and honest about it. Like, yeah, I did bring something different to the potluck than I usually do. Isn't
Yeah,
it awesome? Like, be proud of yourself for making those changes. I think that the way we act whenever we change a habit also influences how others react to it. So, like, if
yeah,
you're like, I'm on a diet, I can't eat that. Yeah, your girlfriends are going to be more like, oh, you're
poking at
doing
you.
great. You can cheat. But if you're
Yeah,
like, hey, I'm really proud of myself for sticking to this, can you help me by encouraging me in this? Your response is going to be that encouragement if you ask for it that way. If you're wearing this
yeah,
confidently whenever you're changing your habits, you're
yeah,
you're. I think that that's one thing that women forget often is that your attitude does drive how other people
it
respond to
does.
you. In a way, not all the time, but it definitely can. And so, also having the right mindset and confidence in doing these things will change how strong you are when those naysayers actually say something.
Yeah, yeah. And the next one's somewhat related, over restriction, which might sound funny coming from us, but like just going crazy, cutting everything out immediately, not following like a progression. And I'm not, sometimes this does work for people, like the cold turkey type of approach. It can work for some people. And some people, it's like, that's all that works in the beginning. But at the same time, it often leads to pendulum swings from what I see, where someone is like, I'm doing, I'm going to cut out like, well, carnivore is a great example. I'll give that. I mean,
Mhm.
that's a really good example of like, any carbs must be bad for me because this influencer said so and this guy lost weight on it and so like he looks ripped on social media, carnivore for me. And you swing all the way that way, not necessarily understanding the biological implications of the thing. People that do that do tend to like be on carnivore for 2 weeks and then be off for a few weeks and then gain the weight back and then like yo-yo and go one way or the other. Same thing with being vegan, which most people that are vegan are overweight anyway in my experience. But what you want to usually find is a reasonable approach. Like the way that we make progress in the gym is incremental. It's okay to make incremental progress on your diet when you start making those changes. Like I've had some people I work with, and I do like it when they're like, yeah, I'm good for changing everything. So we change breakfast, lunch, and dinner, give them a snack or two, boom, they're good. And that works really well for them. I've had some people where it's like, all right, this week we're changing breakfast. A couple weeks later, they're ready for another change. All right, now we're changing lunch. And usually dinner is like the last thing we change. Sometimes that's what's actually needed and beneficial because you need to go through that training process sometimes. And if you push too far in a moment of extreme motivation, that motivation won't be enough to carry you through a whole week of stressful days, when the binge eating habit that you've, gotten into, and the stress eating and stuff like that, it doesn't necessarily hold that at bay any longer. That weekend motivation may not be there long enough to sort of carry you through.
There are some people who have the willpower to over restrict and not ever end up binging, or they
Yep.
can do it for a very long period of time and then put themselves in a poor health situation. I mean, one extreme example, um, have you guys heard of Penn and Teller? I don't watch it, but most people are familiar with who they are.
I'm
Penn
aware of them. Yeah.
Penn from Penn and Teller lost like 100 pounds on a potato only diet. Like he ate 5 potatoes a day. They were bland. They weren't fried.
Yeah.
Like no
Like just
exercise.
baked, basically.
Yeah, you're gonna lose over 100 pounds on that. You're also gonna be extremely deficient in movement and protein and, tons of
Like
other
a lot of
things.
things.
But like he had the willpower to do that. That kind of over restriction is gonna lead to a number of health problems. Like sure, you lost
Yeah.
all the fat, but what else did you lose?
At what
And
cost?
some
Yeah.
people are, that's an extreme example, but some people will over restrict long term and have the willpower to keep that going. So it's good to have some checks on that, have some outside perspective, you may be
Yeah.
looking into what you're doing and making sure that's not something you stay with forever on these long term. And carnivore, like we've discussed many times, as an example, will eventually lead to insulin resistance if you stay on it for too long.
Yeah.
So these over restricting diets, they do have their downsides, even if they show promising results in the beginning.
And
Well,
and what is it doing toward getting you towards a sustainable lifestyle that gives you
Right.
everything that your body needs?
right. I think one thing to note here too is that the powers of the will are fairly frail in 99% of people. And so, there are those people that could do it. However, for most people, and this has been extensively studied in psychiatric medicine, is that behaviors around restriction are typically negative net for someone, right? And so the second someone feels like they're being restricted, cravings increase for that thing. And so it's interesting because with some folks, they can restrict right away. With some folks, it's important to say, you can eat whatever you want. You're not in jail. Like, I'm not going to make it, whatever. You can have whatever you
Hmm.
want. However, having things that are conducive to your goals, right, and making you feel well is going to be sort of the best approach. And
Yeah.
so it's a good thing in most folks to take those things really, really slowly and keep as much of the stuff that you like as you can. It's totally fine if you're eating healthy every day and at the end of a day or two you want to have a cookie, have one, right?
Yeah.
That's okay. It's not like, and I think that goes back to the food as a reward thing. Stop thinking of food as an earned thing and start thinking of it as something you need to live and thrive.
Mm-hmm.
And if you view it as something you need to live and thrive, you're going to have an easier time making better choices.
Yeah.
And if you think about very specific goals, like you said, like protein is a great goal. If someone has a history of cancer in their body, polyphenol count is a great goal. And you think, well, I've got my protein in, I've got my polyphenols in, um, and now I can eat whatever I want. But the truth is, if you get all your protein and polyphenols in, you're eating a lot of like meat and fruit and veggies, and you're not going to be terribly hungry. You're not going to feel empty stomached all the time. You're going to have
Yeah.
really high, low calorie density foods that are very dense in volume. And
Yeah.
so, that's a really good thing to think about is the second you begin restricting yourself on something is the second you begin to fail at that restriction, and at least
Yeah.
mentally, right? And so something to really take into account is you've got to do it at a speed that doesn't feel like restriction. Instead, it just feels like change, which is
Yeah.
different, right?
Yeah. I think that's really important. I think, yeah, well, I'll leave that one aside. So our final one, too, as we kind of start to wrap things up, no accountability. Just trying to do this alone. Sometimes in spite of social pressures and things like that, no coach, no partner, no community, no friends. Um, some people can do this, and that's great if that's you. But for a lot of us, having people that are around us to support is going to be really, really beneficial. And especially if you're married, your spouse being on board is huge, and being honest with them about, I need to change. I would like, your support, even accountability. And like, you see me eat the wrong thing, you see me skip the gym, ask me about that. Like, please talk to me about those things. Have friends. If you got whoever you might have people that you meet with at church regularly, like a small group, or some of your closer friends. It's okay to ask those people for, like, hey, can you text me once in a while and ask me how I'm doing with my diet this week? Like, that can be a very powerful means of helping keep you on track. You can build a scaffold of support systems around you to help you accomplish these goals. Some people even do it on social media. They'll just, like, I'm going to post my progress every week, and everybody please, like, you know hold me accountable, kind of thing. um Obviously, as coaches, this is part of what we do, but there are many ways of getting this type of accountability, and having people around you that, even if they're not experts on the subject, when they ask you, like, how are you doing on your diet this week, and you're like, well, not very good, that's a conversation you don't want to have, or an answer you don't want to have to give, and even that can prevent a lot of behaviors that you're trying to avoid.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that you said was great about this is about your spouse being involved. And I can give a personal example even from today. I don't feel well after the whole car thing and I'm sick. And I was like, I'm just going to go to the gym anyway. And my wife said, is that what you would tell a client to do in this situation?
Mhm.
Well, the answer is no.
Yeah.
And so and sort of what's good for the goose is good for the gander there, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
a reminder that, hey, those principles don't change just because you're feeling out of place or because you're struggling with something, et cetera. You've got to stick to the plan. And here's a person that, without being a thorn in the side, is going, hey, is that something that you would advise someone else to do? Well, if the answer is
Yeah.
no, then it's probably not advisable for you either, in
Yeah.
that case.
Yeah. Yeah, my wife asks me the same question sometimes. It's like, would you tell a client to do that? And sometimes I'll be like, no, but I'm doing it anyway. So that's a risk
Mhm.
that I want to take for myself. That can be fine in certain circumstances. I did that numerous times with my training last year when I was prepping for a powerlifting meet. I was like, no, it's a risk. I'd probably tell them it's your choice, but you probably shouldn't do. I did it. Um, and but I think in general, having your spouse on board is probably the most important part, because they're going to have the biggest effect on you, and how
Yeah.
you do with this thing. And having a spouse that isn't supportive is a big, could be a really difficult obstacle to overcome. And some people do have to work through that challenge of a spouse, because having your spouse work on this area when you're someone that also struggles and doesn't want to change, can lead to a certain degree of almost antagonism. And so if that's you, I'm sorry that you're going through that. Find someone else that you might be able to talk to semi regularly about this, and they can help just keep you on track. You don't have to do this entirely alone. And even, like, if you go to a public gym, you, like, make friendships there. Like, that's
Yeah.
okay to, like, have that person that happens to be at their same time, and you talk with them for just a few minutes. Like, it does tend to kind of happen organically in those types of settings. And what's great is they're there working too. They probably also want to make progress. And so, like, that's why it'll kind of come up organically. And it's really hard to look someone like that in the face and be like, yeah, I totally screwed up this week, and I intend to screw up the rest of the week too, because I already failed. So whatever. You're a lot less likely to have that happen. Cool. Anything else to add to this, Amanda?
Yeah, I think that as far as spouse accountability, that is, like you said, one of the most important. Just want to encourage women a little bit again here. Sometimes when your husband's on board with you doing this weight loss thing and then they ask you how it's going, you respond negatively. Like, hey, how are you sure you want to eat that? Your response is, why? Are you calling me fat? Don't respond that way. See the heart behind it. Women
Yeah.
and men communicate differently. I mean, that can go both ways. So women and men
Yeah.
communicate differently. See the heart of what whoever you've chosen as your accountability partner with this. See the heart behind the questions they're asking. Don't take it personally. That person wants the best thing for you. Um, and they're just trying to keep you on track. And it can be as
Yeah.
simple as, my husband had a friend of his one time who said, I really need to get my diet under control. Can I just send you pictures of my plate every time I eat?
Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Because now he's thinking about what he's putting on the plate because someone else is going to see it. It can be that simple for accountability. It doesn't have to be, let's get on an hour Zoom call and talk about how I'm doing every single week.
Yeah.
It can be incredibly simple. It's very easy to make accountability part of what you're doing every day.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. I hope that was helpful to everyone who's listening. This was another long one, but we had a lot that we wanted to kind of get through because there's just a lot of struggles that people have in this area. If there's something along the lines of the last one, as far as accountability, looking for in a coach, that is what we do. We provide the programs and everything, tell you what to do. Everyone who does what we say gets results, and the people that don't get lackluster results. That's happened every time, hundreds of times. So if you are looking for that, that's what we are here for. If you're looking for a coach that has the shared values, shared vision for what really stewardship of the body looks like, and that you want to answer a higher calling as far as what you're capable of for your family, your community, your workplace, and all the other spheres of influence where you participate, reach out to us. We've got High Calling Fitness on Facebook, Instagram. We're going to go to highcallingfitness.com and book a meeting with one of us, and we'll be happy to just talk to you about how we might be able to help and hear about what's going on in your life. And until then, gains and grace.
Gains and grace.
Gains and grace.